Hello, good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome to this very unique webinar. This one of a kind for us as well. We will be talking about today the story of basically David versus Goliath, essentially, from the point of this whole AI era. We are at a very real turning point in revenue AI. And to explain why that's the case, I really want to go back to where this all started for us. When we first began building Sybill in 2020, the world of sales AI was very different. Call recording tools were present. You had Gong, but you also had Chorus, you had Fireflies, Otter. And essentially, a lot of these tools were the big brother for sales. So it was almost like a surveillance layer built for managers to look into what the reps were doing on a daily basis. This doesn't mean that the reps were getting support, they weren't getting execution help. They were getting was talk ratios or call objection scores and maybe a little bit of note taking here and there. That was what the entire category of this conversational AI was built around. And it was basically observing sellers and not really helping them move deals forward. When we started out, that was one thing which we were like, we need to help the reps, the ICs, move those deals along. And even though the industry believed that visibility was the problem to solve, we really wanted to make sure that the reps saw the value and were able to use software to enable them and not to change. Fast forward to today, things have changed fundamentally. Teams are now well aware that visibility is not the thing that moves revenue. Execution does. All that visibility, all of those call recordings basically become like books on a library shelf, which no one has looked at in years, and it's gathering dust on the side, and deals are getting stalled because like there is no additional help. It's not because of managers don't have the dashboards, it's because reps don't have the time or the context or the support to drive momentum between the meetings. And that shift from visibility to execution is where we are seeing that the category itself is splitting into. Um, what we have seen some of the companies do is respond to this sort of AI evolution shift by adding more agents, adding more modules, more workflows, and that's more layers on top of the old conversational intelligence foundation. We had a very different approach from day one. We were building Sybil from that single point to be a single AI sales assistant, which could have a shared memory, it could have a shared reasoning, it could have the ability to act within this deal. This change came like from the understanding that your fragmented siloed workflows won't really give you the outcome that a sales rep needs in order to move their deals forward. So we're not building a toolbox or a swarm of agents or some dashboard tool. It's a single brain that understands the deals end to end. And what that means is we do three things extremely well. So first is Sybil can capture and connect everything. So every call, every email, Slack message, CRM update, and this is both internal and external, are combined into one single shared memory. Then Sybil will be able to let you ask anything on top of that data. And when I say ask, it's a smart query that you can run, a query you would ask an EA or a human to run. It's like ChatGPT, but trained on your entire pipeline and the deal history. And then on top of that, because we have that ability, you can actually handle mid-deal busy work, which means you can do follow-ups, you can do CRM updates, you can do scheduling, mutual action plans, briefs, and many more. And that is part of the reason why we are here today. We don't want to compare features. We want to show you that these two tools, Sybil and Gong, are built on two very different foundations with very different philosophies about how revenue actually moves forward. So, in today's session, we are going to cover 6 parts. So, first, we will look at the architecture. That's the foundation that determines what any AI system can or cannot do. AI has been around for almost 20 years now. ChatGPT went viral, was so valuable because the foundation itself was done right. And that is something we will talk about, how the foundations for what we are building and what we have seen some of the other tools in the industry have are very different. Then we move into intelligence, how the AI will understand the deals and not just calls. From there, we will go into mid deal execution, the work that will actually help the reps move their deals forward. Post that, we'll cover pricing and value, switching and layering. And finally, we will close with examples of customers that are doing either switching completely from Gong or layering Sybill on top of Gong. Each section will build the case for one single central idea, which is that better sales execution with AI will come from a better AI foundation for sales. And that will not just be features, it will be underlying architecture itself will be different. So let's jump in. For the first part, I have my co founder and CTO, Shomarko, who will talk about the architecture of what we are doing and why that is different from the standard industry.
Nice. Thanks for that amazing intro, Garish. Yeah, before we get into any of the intelligence and the manifestation of the Sibyl's AI capabilities, let's talk about something that secretly determines everything behind it, the AI architecture. And I'm not trying to get theoretical or bore you guys with technical jargon, but what I wanted to really cover is that as we have been building Sybil from a very fundamentally different foundation, when there is a bad architecture, when there is a limited architecture, you have to start feeling that pain. So you will see that, okay, the follow-ups that the AI quote unquote came up with, you still have to rewrite that slightly because it's not as if you wrote it, as if the AI wrote it. The recaps will start missing things that actually mattered in the call. There will be tasks that you promised and that the AI is not able to capture between the two calls. The CRM updates will slightly veer away from the reality and the insights that would not be actionable on your part as a rep. And these are technically not feature gaps, in our opinion. These are architecture gaps. So let's get right down to it. I think there is a fundamental choice when you are trying to build such an AI system. Is that do you build with many small agents where each agent is responsible for a narrow task, or do you build one unified agent that can reason across everything? Both are perfectly valid approaches, by the way, and like we are seeing examples of both, but they do behave slightly differently. Multi-agent systems are technically like having dozens of tiny bots. The problem is each one of these bots are going to see a sliver of the deal, are going to interpret the same call in a different way. Each of them will have its own working memory and each one will produce its own distinct output. This is what we are seeing in like Gong, Agentforce, and many other pre-AI companies. Single agent systems, on the other hand, are actually made up of one single brain, which has a shared memory, which means that the AI can simply understand the full deal. It is able to maintain the context over time as if working side by side with you, the rep, and it is able to generate actions that are lining up with one after the other instead of contradicting each other. This is Sybil. And just to be completely fair, this is not about who is doing it right or wrong. It's just a simple architectural choice and how that choice determines whether your AI is going to help you, the reps, move the deals forward or just produce more work for you. So before we built this latest AI architecture, we actually ended up trying the multi-agent approach ourselves. And we kept running into the problem that the revenue teams are running into today. Each agent technically had a different version of the truth. One agent would actually end up pulling the integration challenges from a call, another would draft a follow-up email, and the third one would actually go and fill up your CRM. The problem was each of these agents were trying to interpret from scratch of what happened in that call or what has been happening since the call in your email exchanges. And it ended up creating contradictions, errors, and cleanup work. And then you have to have a supervisor agent and then many other stopgap solutions to disambiguate between the functioning of these agents. And but like a multi-agent architecture is actually good when the tasks are simple and unrelated. For example, you want to extract a Zoom link, you want to enrich a LinkedIn profile, you want to send a reminder. So in those cases, it actually works. because those tasks are isolated and they don't require shared memory or reasoning. But the work that actually determines how to close a deal, that is not independent at all. That is very sequential, that is very non-linear, and that is deeply interconnected. And this is why we experimented with multi-agent architectures and it collapsed. Selling isn't simple. It is a very convoluted, interconnected chain of reasoning steps, following up, determining the next steps, aligning the stakeholders, identifying a detractor, figuring out, have we seen this risk evolving in some of my other deals, carrying through the momentum, updating the CRM with all of this ground truth, finalizing the strategy with leadership. And they all actually feed into each other. That's the beauty of it. And when every agent has its own memory and interpretation of what's going on in a deal, things start to break down. So we flipped the script here. We ended up building a single agent architecture with one single reasoning brain so that it does not have six versions of the truth. So let's talk a little bit about our single agent architecture, right? Because we flipped the entire architecture, what we had to do is that we could not bolt AI on. Like we had to rebuild the whole product around the idea of one single agent, one brain. And this is what it means in the real world. Like one single brain holds the entire deal. So it knows every call, right from the BDR dialing the person, your prospect for the first outreach, all the way to like during procurement, any other risk signals that has historically come up in that segment that you're trying to sell into, pushing all the CRM updates, keeping all your stakeholders aligned. So all of that is possible because the AI is able to reason across any and everything that Sybil is pulling in. And the output of it is very beautiful. You are able to see that the follow-ups are matching the next steps. The risk analysis actually matches of what you have a gut feeling of what's going on in the deal. The business case is actually able to reflect your buyers' business outcomes and motivations. And the mutual action plan is auto staying refreshed as you are progressing the deal through each of the checkpoints that the AI is tracking with you. So contradictions stop. There are no six versions of the same truth, and nothing needs to be cleaning up manually. And this is where a single agent gives you that a swarm of disconnected agents simply can't. Is it harder to build? You bet it, but we built it. And that is the difference that we are going to make for the revenue teams because now this agent is not observing, it is playing side by side with you on the field. And here's a very simple way to understand how the downstream impacts of having a single agent versus a multitude of agents. A multi-agent system like Agentforce or Gong is like a toolbox. You get a lot of tools, but RevOps has to then wire them together, maintain them, right? Because one day Gemini launches a new model, the next day Anthropic launches a new model. So good luck trying to understand what are the nuances of any of the single LLMs. To debug them, and finally you, the reps, you will still end up getting conflicting output because the agents simply don't talk to each other. A single agent system, on the other hand, is truly a teammate. It is one shared reasoning state that is working alongside you. So no stitching of workflows, no reconciliation, no manual input needed, and no context handoffs failure all the way from that. First reach out to a closed one report to the CS team. You can absolutely build something powerful with a toolbox. Don't get me wrong. You can do that, but you have to assemble it yourself. And you will not be able to have it behave like it's one unified brain. With single agent, you get all of that right out of the box. And that's the difference that drives everything you're about to see in intelligence and mid-deal execution. Over to you, Nishit.
Awesome. Great. So let me talk about Sibyl's intelligence after Shamarko has laid the groundwork for what really powers it. Here's the simplest way to understand why most revenue AI still doesn't feel intelligent. It's still thinking mostly like a call recorder. Basically, most systems, including Gong, still reason at the call level, not at the deal level, or definitely not beyond a deal level. And so what they're doing is analyzing fragments, so keywords, transcripts, talk ratios, sentiment, and so on. And each agent or workflow sees its own slice of the world. Nothing shares memory, nothing compounds. And that results in a very kind of siloed sets of data and a very limited set of queries that you can actually usefully run on top of it. That's not intelligence. It's just a nicely formatted observation. And there's a big difference between the two. So if you think about it, collecting data is easy. Going from data to analysis and being able to see patterns and correlations is the next step. But then, if you want to go beyond analysis, you need to be able to find out actually what's the relationship between all of these different segments, being able to kind of reason about what's happened in the past, what's going to happen in the future, and be able to draw causal patterns. It's not just correlations, but you're able to do root cause analysis. And that's where reasoning and creativity truly come through. And that's where we see Sybil shine the most. So once you have a single agent with unified memory, everything changes. Sybil doesn't think call by call like Gong. It thinks across all your deals and data at once, at the same time. And that's how a real seller thinks. When you're working on your deals every single day, you're not thinking, oh, let's see what happened in this call and let's prepare only for this meeting. No, you're thinking about the entire picture of the deal. You have all the stakeholders mapped out in your head. You know their motivations. You know why they are with you, what they care about, what you've presented in the past. And that's how you're trying to reason, okay, what should I do next? What kind of email should I send? This unlocks things no multi-agent system can reliably do. I'll take control of the screen and share a few examples of what that means. So here's one of the favorite things Sybil has helped me do. I asked Sybil, hey, become my fractional CRO for a second, okay? The target for the next month in new and expansion revenue, analyze the specifics from the last quarter to create a gap analysis, and provide a specific strategic framework so that we can get there. So it's essentially, I'm not outsourcing my thinking, but I'm actually getting some advice from Sybil because it's not just able to see patterns across calls, but reason on top of it. So here, Sybil came back to me with a pretty detailed report as a fractional CRO of what we should do about the next quarter. And this is when we were planning for Q4 and we were starting Q4. And so in the executive summary itself, you can see that Sybil actually looked at what happened in Q3, how much did we close and in what kind of markets and segments and in what value props, what the Q4 pipeline looks like at that stage, at that moment, what is the gap? And then basically, if that is the gap, then what is the root cause of slippage so far? Why are we not winning deals? And that's where it starts to get into how we can improve our conversion rates, how we can reduce our sales cycle length, and so on and so forth. And then going all the way from strategic to tactical into what kind of blockers we need to get better equipped to be able to unblock, what kind of situations we will need to tackle, how do we get to economic buyers, and so on and so forth. Then it lays out a few strategic plans that we can run. So a few plays, enterprise displacement, HubSpot automation, and so on and so forth. So it's basically giving me the tools that I need to plan out the quarter as a sales lead. And then finally, it also came back with some OKRs that we could set for the sales team going forward. And then with the rest of the report, it goes much more in depth into each of those segments. What happened in the previous quarter, patterns across close lost deals, what's up in the next quarter, what's our gap, and then how do we get there, and specific plays, specific campaigns that we could run to actually make that happen. This is the kind of analysis that you just can't do if you're looking at like 15 calls or 10 calls or whatever. This is the kind of analysis, first of all, to do this kind of analysis, that the AI has to actually look at thousands of calls. So you can see here, Sybil looked at 156 deals, which could easily span more than 1,000 conversations. And it's not just looking at those conversations one by one, but it's able to reason on top of whatever it's seeing and being able to do a root cause analysis and then come back with what we can improve on, which is absolutely not possible if you're going with a multi-agent system, which each agent is looking at like some portion of what's happening. Here's another example, which is much more of see some patterns and then help me figure out how do we tackle a new vertical. So basically, what you can do in Sybil is also activate web search and then go in and create an outbound plan. So I went into Sybil and said, hey, look at the consistent themes across our customers in IT services, which is a vertical we've sold into. So I gave it a few names and then figure out why they bought Sybil. And then based on that, create an account plan. Who should we reach out to? Who are the tiered accounts? What's our ICP? What our messaging should be? And based on this prompt, Sybil basically looked at all of our customers in that vertical, figured out why they've bought us in the past, what's the consistent themes of why they're buying us, figured out who's buying us. So it created an ICP profile with who has budget authority, what the current tools they typically use, what's the typical company size, service focus, and so on. And then created a tiered account list of 10 accounts, along with reasoning as to why they should be in my tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 accounts. This is the kind of reasoning that you actually want your sales assistant, your RevOps assistant to be able to do for you. And as a leader, be able to tell you, or even as a rep, be able to tell you that, hey, man, in your territory, these are the top accounts you should reach out to. And this is why, and this is the messaging you can use. So that's what Sybil's doing for me. It also wrote a 3 email outreach sequence. And then I didn't ask for it, but also did a little bit more and came back with a discovery script for me as well. This one, I'm sure a lot of sales managers are going to love, which is obviously with tools like Gong, there's a lot of hullabaloo about being able to look at metrics across reps and being able to figure out what reps are good and bad at. But it really doesn't go deeper than that, which is where we excel quite a lot. For instance, here I asked Sybil, hey, look at the discovery calls held by my sales team over the last 90 days and rate them based on the basis of our sales playbook. And I attached our sales playbook to this prompt, which is basically a 20-page document. And so it went through the sales playbook, figured out, went through the discovery calls we held in the last 90 days, figured out what's working and what's not, and then how we can improve, and then created this report for me. So it gave us an overall grade. Not very happy with the B minus, but we'll take it. We'll improve from there. Came back with like key strengths and critical gaps, and then very clear analysis of what we're consistently doing really well, what we're consistently not doing very well. Went through each element of MedPick and figured out what elements of MedPick we're actually qualifying on or not qualifying on. and then went deep into how that's affecting deal progression and how we can improve. It also gave me rep by rep feedback that I can actually go ahead and implement right away in my one-on-ones with reps. This is how you can basically, a single agent can think through all the deals it's looked at and actually do some pretty detailed analysis to get back to you with insights. And then finally, the last example that I wanted to share with you was this one, where very meta and relevant to this conversation, I went into Sybill and asked it, hey, tell me 3 tactical ways in which I can position Sybill against Gong by looking at how my best reps do it and what our customers say about why they love Sybill over Gong. And so over here, Sybil basically then analyzed wherever we've run against Gong in the recent past, and then came back with 3 ways to position against Gong. And literally the number first way is lead with AI first and what that means. And this is what we're talking about in this particular conversation. So I came back with these ways and methods in which we can position against Gong, some quotes from actual customers that I can reference and watch calls for, and so on and so forth. Then I asked it, okay, can you go a little bit deeper into how cross-deal intelligence has made an impact for our customers that Gong's not able to do? And then Sybil actually did the cross-deal intelligence and came back with what kind of difference it's making. So for sales reps, it's helping them go from manual research to instant context about every deal they're working on. For managers, it's going from coaching individual calls to pattern recognition, which is what we just saw in the previous example. And for leadership, it's going into dynamic intelligence, not just static dashboards you got to look at, but actually like intelligence on what's going to happen this quarter, what's the gap, and how we get there, and so on and so forth. It goes more into in-depth into it. And then finally, to top it all off, I went into Sybil and said, hey, Phil, this is all great. Now look at all the deals we've lost against Gong in the past and help me re-engage them. Write the emails. And then Sybil actually basically in this mega prompt, it went into 300 different sources across hundreds of deals, hundreds of calls, and came back with like how like one follow-up email that we can send out. And then I can ask it to create more and more for the other deals that we can work on this front. So this is just a teaser of the kind of things you can do when you have a single agent digesting hundreds or thousands of conversations at once and is able to not just see patterns, but also reason on top of it and create plans, create outreach, create strategy, and empower you to actually focus your time on what matters the most instead of browsing call by call or relying on insights that does draw from 2 or 3 conversations at once and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So Nishit, if I may just come in here for quick 2 seconds. Like it might appear that, hey, ChatGPT can already do this, right? I just need my call transcripts to get this output. That's actually not true because the involvement that we have been able to handcraft, like there are so many stages from what on the prompt to the output that Sybil gets. Like we do entity disambiguation, we do query decomposition. So which simply means that the AI is able to think, okay, to get to the answer for this composite query, what are the mini and the phased queries that I need to run? Some of those queries actually will need it to go to the internet and do company research. Some of it will go to Crunchbase. Some of it will actually go and look into our closed lost account. Some of it will go and look into our product help documents. So this is one system that is helping you get to your outcome instead of you having to stitch different systems together. And the cost question was also very relevant because if you start uploading 300 call transcripts to as an input context to any LLM, good luck. There are a lot of graph related search that our LLM is able to do, which specifically pulls out the specific sentences, the phrases, and the news articles, even portions of a news article, sometimes even portion of a podcast where an executive went and spoke about something that is relevant to you closing that sale. So this level of granularity is how we are able to get to this human-like accuracy, while also ensuring that the costs to serve each of these queries is typically around less than a cent to 5 cents.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, both Shomarko and Nishit, for that overview of the architecture and what does it mean in terms of the kind of complexity of queries that you can run and how smart the single unified brain can be in running those queries. Let me take you to a more ground level of what Sybil can do at a bottoms up rep first level. So deals aren't won just on calls. There's a lot that goes on between 2 calls that helps the deal move forward. This obviously includes the follow up and the pre meeting preparation, but there is multi threading, stakeholder alignment, the email nudge to reactivate a champion. And this middle part is where sellers are spending almost 70% of their day. And it is also the piece where revenue tools don't have all of the context which means that the sellers are left to their own in terms of figuring out what to do next. The aspects of CI, forecasting, coaching, everything is outside of this domain, right? They watch deals, they can diagnose deals, but they do not participate in deals. This is key gap of what Sybill can fill in because it has this unified information, this mid-deal execution where reps are spending most of the day, and for a lot of times the revenue is decided or the deal gets stalled in this piece. Just moving on to what is our approach to mid-deal execution. It's surprise, it is very different from what Gong does. Gong's POV on improving sales performance is very top down. They believe one of the biggest levers is manager visibility. So they built for managers that include scorecards, insights, dashboards, coaching, forecasting. Where we come in, our point of view is we want to help improve the sales performance by enabling a bottoms up motion. We believe that the biggest lever is the frontline reps that are in front of the customers. If we can help support them, if we can help enable them, that really gets the revenue moving forward, that really helps the deals moving forward. And that is what really changes the trajectory of a revenue organization. And so a lot of what we have built is to support the reps handle that mid-deal busy work that is creating bad execution and too many context switches at the first point. And because of this, you can not only move your deals faster, but you also get cleaner data in your CRM because reps don't have to manually backfill that data. Sybil is updating all of it with fresh, accurate data as it happens. And then the forecasting for the managers also get accurate, which is a byproduct of like reps getting that value, the system understanding the deals because the data is consistent. It is tied to actual buyer behavior. It is not dependent on the memory of a human. It is directly coming from your conversations. And you can actually self coach, and the manager's coaching also improve because they get to see the deal in its live state, not post facto, not a stitched together version of calls or emails from 20 different sources. It is a single source of truth. And so centering on the AE for us is not just rep first, it's actually revenue first. And that's for the entire revenue organization. But it starts from the AE. So today, I'm going to show you a few more sections on what it looks like to actually center on the A. This means that Sybil is doing the work with the rep. So let's take a look. So this is probably the most simplest piece over here. You have seen this dashboard hundreds or maybe thousands of times if you've used any call recording dashboard like a Gong. The difference comes in which parts of this dashboard and how different parts of this dashboard and how they're helping the reps change their own day to day. Okay. The part which I use a lot, I run a lot of deals. This is a deal which I have been running, is this thing called follow up email. Now, follow up emails are very common. The beautiful part about Sibyl's follow up emails is it is not a follow up email which is built on or written by AI in a robotic voice. We are actually learning these follow-ups, writing styles from reps' own emails in how they send those emails out to their customers. And Sybil is continuously learning and improving based on those emails. So if you actually read through this email, you will see that the email has been written in very casual, informal tone. It's not, it was great chatting with you both today. Like, I am super excited to get this pilot movie. It's very great chatting with you today. That's my style of writing. That's my style of sharing information on the call. A different person might have a very formal email, and Sybil then will learn that over a period of time. And on different kinds of calls, your emails could be different. So a demo could have a separate style. A negotiation call email would be a much more direct, formal, shorter email. That would be a separate style. So Sybil is learning that entire style of writing. And this is where reps don't have to spend time. It comes to the point where it's creepily close to what the rep would want to write versus what the AI is writing for the rep to send across. So instead of taking even 20 minutes to write or edit a AI written email, it takes 20 seconds to send it out. The second part over here, which I really love, is this ability to get tasks via Sybil. So What Sybill does, and this is one of the most beautiful part for someone who is on calls and emails all day long. A rep is the perfect example. I myself feel inundated where everyone is throwing tasks at me from all sides. So what Sybill does is from every single interaction you're having, internal or external, we are pulling in the action items for your day, and they are actually paired up with the context of what that call was. If there was a call behind the call, it will pull up the context from there. Any email thread, it has all of the context because of that architecture which Marco was sharing. And then right from the platform, I can take action as to whether I need to send a calendar invite or whether I need to write a follow-up email. For example, over here, it's coming right from that specific call where we discussed that we need to schedule a December 8 review. And I over here can start any of these actions, and Sybill will start executing and create the first draft of that action. So when it's launched shared objections doc, Sybill is actually creating the full objections guide, and that is looking from hundreds or thousands of calls in a single flow. So my day-to-day execution, my AI to-do list, things I used to have on my sticky notes or my Apple Notes, is all in one place. It's managed via AI, and it's very easy to move this around. I can send and reassign this task to someone else on my team. I can complete it, checked off. When Sybil detects that the task is completed, it will actually automatically show that I completed that task. Over time, the idea of where we are going towards is not just have like emails that can be sent or calendar invites. I want to be able to create proposals right from this tab. I want to be able to create quotes and invoices and order forms and decks from this single button with the context across that entire action. So if you are discussing with your manager, that information flows into the deck. If they're discussing with the team about the roadmap, that information flows into the. So every single thing that you need in order to run the revenue can be done from this tab, as opposed to having to go to 5 or 6 different platforms. Even calendar or email is a new platform that you have to learn, that you have to go and do an action on. Okay, third thing is CRM. As a seller, CRM is a big part of our lives. Every single day, we need to update the CRM or make some changes here and there, and that takes up a lot of time. What Sybil does is it is actually capturing all of your CRM. So it's mapping the entire CRM. It's figuring out how you like to put information into that CRM. And then it's figuring out what is the prompt that will help you in that information. So if I have a field which is licensed users on current, and that is an information which a rep has to manually fill up, Sybil can automatically populate that integer into the CRM. You could think it can go into, for example, forecast fields, which is pick list or number or a text box. So over here, we have a forecast fields which picks which of the medic criteria are fulfilled for this deal. This is syncing back to your CRM every single time, every single day. And this keeps the data fresh all the time for all the deals. And so, again, as we were discussing earlier, one, most importantly, reps don't have to go to CRM to fill it. But two, your team has perfect data, live, fresh, accurate to make decisions on top. So hopefully that gives you a glimpse into what Sybil can do for that mid-deal execution. So you can focus on how do you move the deals forward quickly, as opposed to spending time on writing this up or typing this up manually. We have been using this functionality for everything from brainstorming on how to move deals forward, to getting us personal coaching, to writing follow-ups, to looking at the deal process. Okay. If there are questions, we have 10 more minutes and then we'll be able to take that question. We, like, as I was sharing, the best part of this is you can stitch together these components with a tool like AI Builder or some other Zapier or Makeflows. There are some pieces that you might be able to put together, right? But it takes time, it takes money, it takes engineering effort, and then there is it is still fragmented solutions that are coming up together. A lot of teams we have heard build pre-meeting briefs or follow-up emails internally using their own systems like Zapier and anything. or even Gong in many examples, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't have that feeling of I can send this without even thinking. That's what you can get with Sybil. So hopefully this gives a sense of why those multi-agent swarm engines that you hear revenue OS terms will never be as smart as what Sybil can do. I'm going to talk about pricing real quick, okay? Because it's not Sybil is cheaper, but more as this AI era is evolving and the technology is continuously just getting better and better, what are you actually paying for when you talk about the price point? Over the last year, what we have heard is Gong's pricing and renewal quotes have climbed into a 250, 260 per user range category, which is enormous. That's per month per user. For 20 seats, you're typically paying over $50,000 to $60,000. And that just keeps on stacking up. They've also pushed in things like bundled contracts. So you have now an engage plan and a forecast plan and enable plan. And most of the times, teams only need one of those modules, and smaller teams will end up paying even more per seat. And then there are annual lifts built in. But none of that spend has helped improve execution in a material way. It improves the manager's visibility. It's just dashboards, more workload, and reps are still trying to build or execute a version of Sybil, and RevOps is trying to do that on their end. And the end result of all of this is people will still end up writing their own emails. People will still end up entering information in the CRM. They will still have to dig through calls. Because we are a single agent system, you do not need to build your own workflows. You do not need to manage any agents. You do not need to wire together behaviors. You get all of these execution points out of the box. So whether it's follow-ups or CRM updates or multi-threading support or figuring out the call plan for the next call or creating mutual action plans or collateral documents or even scheduling, you get them out of the box. And this, when the reps can rely on information like that, their day-to-day becomes easier. They can focus actually on customers and on closing the deals. And the overall organizational efficiency and rhythm is improved. So your CRM is cleaner, your forecasts are tighter, managers have better signal, and then leaders get pipeline visibility. We do not, this entire piece comes without any platform fees, without implementation fees, without any forced bundling. So yes, Sybil is for sure more affordable, but the important part is it is more productive. It is a tool that actually makes reps the hero. It gets them to be to the value that they would have envisioned AI to bring them. What's the adoption cycle? A lot of folks over here are running Gong or running other tools. What does that mean in terms of adopting and switching over to Sybil? So there are two ways you can adopt. So first is rip and replace. If you want a single system for everything, Sybil can fully replace Gong for most teams at a much lower cost and with much higher individual contributor usage. Everything we showed today comes right out of the box. Setups are very light. We actually have done a lot of the heavy lifting so that the team adoption is high out of the gate and not 5 months or 6 months later with so many people having to do an implementation cycle. The second stage, because not everyone is ready to switch off of a system which has been running for years in some cases. If you're not ready to switch, or if your RevOps is wants to keep going for whatever call recording or forecasting, that's totally fine as well. Sybil treats Gong as simply a data source, so it automatically ingests Gong calls, and reps don't change anything. Leaders keep the platform that they're used to, but then reps still get better execution. They still get better AI intelligence on top of Gong. So either way, you get that single agent system benefit that you just saw. Last but not the least, what has enabled this? It is a lot of customers. I will close with this because nothing we have walked today matters. If our customers don't get the real outcomes, if we are not able to translate all of these features of product that we have showed or the architecture into actual deliverable outcomes for real teams. Customers using Sybil, reps using Sybil have gone from 84K in closed revenue in a month to 300K in closed revenue. We are consistently hearing people that have much better data hygiene, people that have much better win rates, they know what to do in their deals. They feel more in control and with more emotional bandwidth because of the lesser context switches. When we think about people that used to have Gong, there are two kinds of customers that you see here today. Teams that have either ripped and replaced Gong completely from day one because they wanted a single system that could help reps move those deals forward and not just be a call recorder, or teams who have kept Sybill but then simply layered, who kept Gong and simply layered Sybill on top of it because they wanted those extra deal execution, those extra follow-ups, which is written in reps voice. They wanted those risk alerts, they wanted that CRM hygiene, and then also cross-deal intelligence. But they wanted all of that without touching their existing stack or disrupting workflows. What all of them have in common is they didn't adopt Sybil because of a single feature. They adopted it because it changes how the reps operated and how the reps' lives changed. And that change happened in a matter of days. Like we have a very self-serve motion. So when you start Sybil, you can actually see in a few days how your entire work style can change and how that seeps into, like, we have heard scenarios where this is like the top tool alongside LinkedIn and Gmail that is open for every rep all the time because it makes that much easy their life that much easier. It does make the CRM cleaner. You don't have to do manual stuff in the CRM. It makes forecasts more real. It removes busy work, accelerated deals, which is probably the most important thing for a rep. And all of that is out of the box. You don't have to build stuff. You don't have to configure stuff. So whether you are using Gong today or you're starting from scratch, whether you're trying to rip or replace or just layer us in, the pattern is the same. When you put a single unified brain behind your revenue engine, the performance lifts across the entire team. And that is ultimately what we want to do. Thank you so much. We have, I believe, a few more minutes, probably 5 more minutes for Q&A. I am picking Alex's question. So right now, our CS and implementation teams use Gong for really basic use case, a note taker and ability to send a safe link after the call. Very common across customers we speak with, Alex. Does Sybil allow you to assign a domain or just generally protect a call recording link and make it expire after a certain amount of time? Yes, we do. So you can set similar to the sharing preferences within Google Doc and Gong. From what you've seen, we would be able to allow you to share just the video transcript or video transcript and the entire dashboard and have that recording link expire after a certain amount of time, and you can share it with specific people.
One more from Alex on the difference between our platform and Ask Elephants plugins in the cloud. What do you think that's about?
We have come across Ask Elephant in the last few months, essentially. I think the biggest theme we have seen, not just with Ask Elephant, but also there are a bunch of other tools in the market around sales tech. It is a crowded space. Is the same which Shomarko talked about, which is this single unified brain and how that is powering everything upfront. So think of it this way, like you will have every tool will provide the features that we show. Like you will get follow-up emails, you will get pre-meeting brief, you will get some kind of CRM fill up. The question is how accurate will that input be so that you don't have to manually edit that information and can rely on it without having to think about it. And that is what that unified brain will power. Unfortunately for us, you only get to say this value once you're actually in the weeds, right? You have seen this on your own data. So for example, if you have Gong, one thing we have done in the past is we will backfill data from Gong. So you can actually see the output on your calls and deals on day one, as opposed to having to wait a week or a month in order to collect the data, right? So that then shows how accurate data becomes very quickly with Sybil. I will pick up this one last question because I think this is an interesting point. Devesh asked if Sybil able to identify and automatically map meetings to the right deal in CRM. Yes. The way we work is the moment you connect your Salesforce into Sybil, we will map your entire Salesforce or your HubSpot, and we will analyze what is happening in that entire CRM and automatically fill up or create prompts to fill up information in that. So the human aspect of it is very low. You can go in and you can super customize the prompt if you want, but the starting point is really good that it gets you 85, 87% of the way there. And if you need to go to 95, 96%, the customization is also extremely easy. So all of this CRM fill up, manual entry goes away pretty much quickly. Okay, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. It was a really fun session. It was also a unique session for us doing this with company as big as Gong or positioning against. So I really appreciate all of your times. And if you want to chat, please do reach out to us. We would love to share more. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.